Chapter 391, First Gathering. In the Purple Cloud Palace, Tao ancestor Hongjun sat at the top and there was a row of meditation cushions lined up at the bottom. Feng Lin sat upright in the first seat and didn't move. Fatty took the second seat, followed by the Greek sisters Yana and Eris, then Yi and Suli took the fifth and sixth seats respectively. These were all the members of the current Mythological Genes Association. Everyone was present for the first gathering. Yana and the other three would occasionally cast strange glances at Fatty. This guy's equipment was so luxurious that it blinded everyone. It was impossible for them to ignore him. He had all sorts of virtual equipment. Each of them cost money, star coins. It wasn't something that could be easily obtained. This Fatty didn't seem to care about them at all. Who was he? How rich was he? Someone who wasn't short on money. No matter how calm Yana and the other three were, they couldn't help but secretly curse. Fatty remained proud. To him, who had obtained a life planet as a gift when he turned of age, these were nothing. What he was secretly happy about was that after 1 to 2 months, the Mythological Genes Association had expanded so quickly. Other than Tao ancestor Hongjun and Tao friend Wukong, Zhu Tiangang, can only be considered the number 3 in the association now. At the thought of his head raised even higher. He put his head to the front where Feng Lin was and asked softly, Tao friend Wukong, do you know the reason why Tao ancestor Hongjun has called for us to gather here today? Yana and the others also looked over curiously. This was also something that they would like to ask. There were no signs at all before this gathering was called. No one could figure out what the reason was. However, Feng Lin smiled and said with an air of mystery, Tao ancestor Hongjun has woken up from a deep slumber after an ancient calamity of broken laws. The reason he founded the Mythological Genes Association was so that he could unravel the truth behind the ancient calamity. He would naturally have his reasons to call you all here. Let's just wait quietly and see. He'll definitely not let us be disappointed. He acted as a supporting role and boosted his Tao ancestor Hongjun clone status, successfully bringing up the quintet's curiosity. Right now, the Tao ancestor Hongjun clone sat upright and had his eyes closed without saying anything for very long. The atmosphere became extremely quiet. The other 5 didn't speak up either. Tao ancestor Hongjun's status was far too honorable. If they were to offend him and ended up losing a great opportunity, it'd be a great loss for them. Right now, all 5 of them had respectively enrolled in a Cosmos University, and had a deeper understanding about the Mythological Genes Association. They understood that it was a great opportunity for them to be able to enter the association. The many buildings and structures on Mythology Planet hid the secrets behind ancient mythological civilizations, many of which were lost when passed down through the interstellar space. Right now, all of these were presented before them to freely browse through. This showed that Tao ancestor Hongjun definitely grasped the mystery of ancient cultivation, and just the thought of it made them extremely horrified. If he were to really put things into action, there would be numerous powerful interstellar cultivators born. They had to hold on to this great opportunity tightly. Zhu Tiangang, Yana, and the other 3 either had no advancement paths or their inherited legacies had been lost. All of their eyes reflected great determination. Only by understanding myths and legends would they be able to go further on the path of cultivation. Knowledge was priceless and mythological knowledge was even more so. This was the greatest opportunity in interstellar space, and yet they could all be found in the Mythological Genes Association. Everyone was harboring different thoughts when Tao ancestor Hongjun finally spoke up. He threw a glance toward Feng Lin and the other 5. All of them sat upright. The 6 of you have already gotten into Cosmos universities. I have a test for you. Each of you shall set up a mythology collection society in your university to help me gather various mythological relics. I'll assess the value of these relics and bestow you with relevant mythological knowledge or give you a chance to ask a question about your own cultivation. The more mythological relics you obtain or the more precious they are, based on the principle of equivalent exchange, the better the rewards you'll receive. Set up a mythology collection society. Fatty, Yana, and the other three exchanged glances and carefully thought about this. The more they pondered, the more they felt that this name held a deeper meaning. However, what was strange was that after Tao ancestor Hongjun said this, he only said one more thing to Feng Lin. Wukong, you'll take over and explain to them the details about the Mythology Collection Society. After saying that, he disappeared without a trace from where he was standing. Tao friend Wukong, what is going on? What deeper meaning does Tao ancestor Hongjun have to be doing this? Fatty asked anxiously, what use does this Mythology Collection Society have? Feng Lin, what's the purpose of this? Yana represented the other four and asked. Feng Lin. Tao friend Wukong's actual identity is Feng Lin. Fatty might look fat, but he was very smart. When he heard this, his eyes immediately gleamed as if he understood something. He started to assess Feng Lin. So that's it. Wasn't this Feng Lin the newly risen elite in the Great Wall University? It's even said that he has surpassed Donghuang Taichu and Augustus to become the #1 amongst the freshmen. Tao friend Wukong is the one that Tao ancestor Hongjun truly relied on, thus, he must be Tao ancestor Hongjun's direct disciple. Otherwise, how could he have risen so strongly from the barren solar system? The solar system's Earth was the origins of myths and legends. Given that Tao ancestor Hongjun had woken up from his deep slumber since ancient times, the greatest possibility would be that he had appeared from there. A lot of thoughts went through Fatty's mind, and he seemed to have unraveled much hidden truth, yet he didn't reveal them. Feng Lin didn't mind his identity exposed before Fatty. His Wukong ID was just one that he had to show outsiders. Only by wearing a layer of mask would these people not be able to tell that his real identity was Tao ancestor Hongjun. 5 pairs of eyes stared at Feng Lin, waiting for his reply. Yana and the others had thought of this before. Although all of them were members of the Mythological Genes Association, Feng Lin was the only important person. It was very likely that he was Tao ancestor Hongjun's direct disciple. Tao ancestor Hongjun was a person of great status and wasn't willing to say much. They could only ask Feng Lin about the details. Feng Lin was the one who called them over and naturally knew that they would ask this. He didn't keep them in suspense and smiled calmly. This is an evaluation mission. What's the evaluation mission for? Eris asked, unable to hold back. Feng Lin replied calmly, everything in the Mythological Genes Association must be exchanged using causality points. After the completion of missions, there'll be causality points awarded. They can be used to raise your membership level and obtain greater rights. They can also be exchanged for things that are useful for your cultivation. For example, they can be pills from ancient times that can increase your cultivation, various mythological knowledge, or even ancient treasures. Everything is possible. Pills? Are you referring to the amazing pills in the mythological era where one pill could let mortals fly or even bring them back from the dead? When Fatty heard this, his eyes immediately stared wide open. They aren't that exaggerating. However, it's still possible to increase one's cultivation speed by 3 to 5 times. Feng Lin had experienced this personally and was very certain about this. The moment he said this, the eyes of Yana, Eris, Su Li, and Yi gleamed. Chapter 392, Future Magnate. What's the concrete use for the Mythology Collection Society? Fatty was impatient by nature and asked the question that everyone was most pressing to find out about. Feng Lin didn't reply to all of their questions but sent over a chunk of information. It was the objective of the Mythology Collection Society he had set up. Control, collect, protect? Fatty, Yana, and the other three exchanged glances, entering deep into thought. That's right. These are the Mythology Collection Society's objectives. Feng Lin said calmly. Over 3,000 years have passed ever since humans found out about the profoundness behind mythological genes. Yet, we're still currently situated in the same era as when the cultivation era had just started. There are still many mythological ruins that are scattered across the universe, waiting for people to excavate them and fill up the blanks in myths and legends. Those mythological relics tend to have all sorts of mysterious effects and hold the truth to mythological civilizations. According to Tao ancestor Hongjuan's intention, he wants all of you to set up a club in your school to take in these objects, analyze their effects, and then submit investigation reports. Tao ancestor will assess these reports and bestow you guys with causality points according to the report's value. At the same time, you must also take in talents with great potential as an objective. This can hasten the speed at which we can take in the items. The better you perform and the more club members you have under you, the greater the degree of causality points commission you will get as the club's president. Then, you'll be able to get tremendous benefits. Feng Lin briefly explained the Mythology Collection Society's objectives and then made an introduction through the information. Everyone had a general gist of them now. I've already set up a Mythology Collection Society in the Great Wall University as a subsidiary organization to the Mythological Genes Association. I'll leave the other school to you guys. Once you successfully set up a club, you'll be able to become a permanent member of the Mythological Genes Association. Feng Lin smiled and said. When Yana and the other three heard that, they were instantly moved. Right now, they were still temporary members. If the time limit was over and they had yet to become permanent members, they would never be able to enter the Mythological Genes Association in the future. After having experienced the great benefits, how could they possibly bear to leave? But what about me? I'm already a permanent member. What is in for me to complete this evaluation? Fatty asked. After completing the mission, if you don't use it to change your membership level, there'll be a reward of 1,000 causality points. You can use them to trade for mythological knowledge, pills, or other items, said Feng Lin. What items are there to exchange? Fatty was increasingly curious. Having been born into the Zhu clan, one of the wealthiest clans in the interstellar space, although he might appear to be fat, he wasn't a good-for-nothing. He was very clear what a great price these ancient pills would fetch if they were put up for sale. Even though he currently possessed a life planet, those pills were hard to come by. It wasn't as if he didn't have enough money, but that he wouldn't be able to purchase them even with money. 10 million years had passed by and it was very hard for these pills to be stored for so long. Even if they were found, they would just be mush and wouldn't have much use. One could imagine the price of a pill that still retained its effect. Even if a person had money, it would be hard to purchase them. He'd be raking in money if he could get them from the Mythological Genes Association. After all, the money in the clan didn't belong to him. If he could take control over this channel, he'd be able to silently cut off the retail channel for pills in the interstellar space. Could he possibly be lacking star coins then? Fatty's eyes now radiated the gleam of shiny star coins. Feng Lin naturally had thought about it thoroughly before introducing the causality points system in the Mythological Genes Association. He opened up a list of items that they could exchange, and it immediately attracted Fatty's, Yana's, and everyone else's attention. Dustfall Medicinal Crystal 82 causality points, Dragon Tiger Exchange Fetus Pill 500 causality points, 9 Revolutions Birth Transformation Pill 1290 causality points. Every pill medicine listed had an amount of causality points tagged behind it. There were also the Grand Mist Fate Pill that required 10,000 causality points and the 9 Revolutions Immortal Pill that required 110,200 causality points. These were all alchemy pills in the myths and legends. This was just the list of pills that was documented in the Furnace Alchemy Arts records. However, he was still incapable of refining most of them. However, he didn't pay it much heed and still included them into the list. It was because once Fatty, Yana, and the others could afford to exchange such high-grade items at the expense of a tremendous amount of causality points, the benefits that Feng Lin received would be even greater. he would be able to refine these alchemy pills by then. After the pills, what followed was all sorts of mythological knowledge. Japanese Myths and Legends Overview 1278 Causality Points. Western mythological knowledge of Goddess Hera 10,273 Causality Points. Out of them, Huaxia's mythological knowledge was the most expensive. Just the mythological summary for Kunlun Mountain alone would cost 120,000 causality points or higher. The price was exorbitant. However, Feng Lin didn't feel that they were exorbitant. As the only ancient civilization that didn't have a break in the course of history, Huaxia had far too many myths and legends. Just the legends in Kunlun Mountain alone could suppress countless other mythological civilizations. Western Queen Mother, Eastern Duke, Buddhism. There were all sorts of myths and legends, and it wasn't surprising for their prices to be higher. The densely packed list included all sorts of items that could be exchanged using causality points, and Fatty's eyes gleamed as he looked at them. He couldn't wait to quickly complete the evaluation and obtain causality points to exchange for these items. Yana and the others were also astonished. Since it's the Mythology Collection Society, then we must bring out sufficient temptations to lure those people to enter the club. However, as the club's president, we should also set up similar exchange systems like the one in the Mythological Genes Association. Members who take in mythological relics can obtain rewards and exchange them for varying mythological knowledge. Of course, being the presidents of the clubs, we have control over this sole channel, and the price that the Mythology Collection Society would have to pay for the exchanges would definitely need to be higher than that of the Mythological Genes Association. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to get any benefits out from it at all. We should still try to earn the difference in cost, said Yana. Being a cultivator on the goddess of wisdom Athena mythological path, she had outstanding intelligence. She came up with a detailed plan within a few minutes and set the internal standards for the Mythology Collection Society, based on what Feng Lin had said. This brought him many great inspirations as well. Maybe we can do this. It's hard to obtain causality points, so we can also establish a benchmark for star coins exchange. After all, causality points are just the benefits that we get internally from the Mythological Genes Association. There's no need for us to extend it out to the club. Those who aren't members of the Mythological Genes Association won't be able to understand the true value of causality points. Thus, it'd be a waste for us to give them the points. Giving them star coins would be more practical. Fatty's eyes gleamed and came up with another plausible proposal that would allow them as the presidents to obtain greater benefits. With ready benefits right before them, it'd be a waste to not take advantage of them. Yana, Eris, Suli, and Yi weren't inflexible people and also nodded in agreement. The five of them engaged in an intense discussion, and a club that crossed the top 10 universities in the universe gradually took form. Feng Lin stood at the side and smiled as he watched this scene. It was as if he could see the first batch of the Mythological Genes Association's future magnates rising. Chapter 393, Military Mission. After coming out of the virtual cabin, Feng Lin got up and smiled. The rewards he had gained from the trip to the virtual universe was a lot. The Mythology Collection Society's basic form had been established. Given the foundation and strength that Zhu Tiangang, Yana, and the others had, he reckoned that he would be able to reap rewards very quickly. He would have to take action quickly as well. He re-entered the many details that had been discussed earlier into the club's information, perfecting them. He was going to wait until the opportunity came for him to start recruiting members and gradually growing stronger. The Mythology Collection Society targeted elites, and the recruitment of each member would need to be assessed by him. Those who had no potential and could only help make up the numbers mustn't be accepted. The first condition for the elites who wished to enter the club would be for them to bring out at least one piece of a mythological relic. Otherwise, it would be useless to continue the conversation. This was the most basic criteria for entering. If they couldn't even do this, they'd just be wasting each other's time and effort. With these details discussed, What was next was to slowly recruit members to expand the club. However, this wasn't something that needed to be rushed. Phong Lin saw that many messages were flashing non-stop on his identity microchip. It seemed as if many people had left him messages. He tapped open and saw the holographic projection of a middle-aged man with a grim countenance. He said in a deep voice, "Second Lieutenant Phong Lin, report to the Interstellar Warfare Unit's logistic unit immediately." The day had come to start reporting to the Great Wall Army. Phong Lin looked at the time the message was sent. It was exactly 1 hour ago. He quickly put on his smart military uniform, put on the military badge, and walked out. The interior of every star station was a huge battle fortress. He took the elevator and quickly descended to the bottom of the fortress. Flames were seething outside the translucent alloy, and he was getting closer and closer to the star that was attempting to drown him completely. With the entire star as energy, the technology that this fortress contained was beyond one's imagination. If technologies were developed to the extreme, they might not be weaker than mythological genes. With mythological genes and technology together, one would evolve human lives on the intrinsic level and the other would change the universe's environment. One took action from the inside and the other from the outside. This was how the interstellar humans kept on getting stronger. Phong Lin faintly had some comprehension. He took the elevator and headed down, quickly arriving in basement 11,723. He had entered the deepest part of the star, with the elevator's surroundings being immersed within the star's molten lava. However, the temperature inside seemed perfectly normal. Boom! The elevator arrived and the door opened. "You're Phong Lin?" A middle-aged officer with a tall and straight figure walked up to him. The military badge he wore was that of a lieutenant colonel's. "Greetings, sir." As a newly enlisted militant, he quickly saluted when he saw a higher-ranking officer. "Hello, I am the head of the Medicine Refinement Department in the Interstellar Warfare's Logistic Unit, Hong Tianshou. From today onward, you have been assigned to work under me. According to the Marshal's orders, I've already made arrangements for you to have a high-end, independent medicinal refinement lab follow me." The lieutenant colonel assessed Phong Lin and then nodded. "Yes, sir." Phong Lin called out with a strong voice. The two of them walked into the deepest part of the fortress, with one behind the other. "Welcome to the astrograde refinement chamber." The AI automatically recognized the duo's arrival, and a great alloy door suddenly opened, presenting a massive and high-technological laboratory. The room was well lit and there were all sorts of scientific devices. They were all top-notch refining devices that were forged from the best materials, providing an extremely high level of precision. Medicine refinement was an art that required a high level of precision, and the slightest bit of difference would bring about a vast change. As one of the top 10 universities in the universe, what the Great Wall University used was naturally the best in interstellar space. Some of these devices were things that Phong Lin had only heard of before but was seeing it for the first time. Right now, they were all presented before him, and he could use them freely. As a medicinal refinement master and an alchemist, he couldn't help but feel happy. Phong Lin glanced around briefly and then smiled, saying, "These are enough." His medicinal refinement skills relied on using the spirit force to perform the most concise control over the medical properties, and thus his requirements for devices weren't high. These were sufficient. Without this capability that allowed him to break away from the restrictions of devices, it would be impossible for him to have refined all sorts of medicine, all this while under complicated situations. "All right. Second Lieutenant Phong Lin, listen up. I'm now representing the Interstellar Warfare Unit to assign you a special military mission," announced the lieutenant colonel with a solemn expression. Phong Lin listened respectfully. "Everything in our Great Wall Army has its military order. We won't oppress any students or soldiers, and if there are missions, there will be rewards. After you complete the mission, we'll give you a relative amount of contribution points as a reward. You should have guessed it by now. The medicinal refinement team you lead has the sole mission of refining the crimson refinement gunpowder, the great killing weapon used to fight against spirits, the lieutenant colonel said in a deep voice. Feng Lin nodded. He had naturally thought of this. This is the reward that we'll be giving for this mission. If the team you lead can produce 100 kilograms or more of crimson refinement gunpowder within a month, we'll reward you with 1 million contribution points. If you can produce 500 kilograms or more, we'll give you 10 million contribution points. If you can produce over 1,000 kilograms, then congratulations. Not only will you receive 30 million contribution points, but you'll also be promoted to become a lieutenant. The lieutenant colonel gave a detailed listing of the reward. To simplify things, the more crimson refinement gunpowder produced, the greater the rewards. Refining 1,000 kilograms of crimson refinement gunpowder within a month? Do you think that genetic medicine is inexpensive cabbage? Feng Lin couldn't help but lament in his heart. Although the reward was great, it wasn't that easy to get them. It was impossible for him to refine so much crimson refinement gunpowder alone. And even with the support from the spirit force, Feng Lin wouldn't be able to do it. With the great reward, there would definitely be people with the courage to fight for it. He could tell the goal behind this mission. They wanted him to teach his subordinates and let them master the technique to refine the crimson refinement gunpowder as well. With the joint efforts of the entire team, they'd be able to complete the mission. The promotion was the greatest temptation. It was a blatant and open scheme that Feng Lin was unable to refuse. In fact, he wouldn't refuse it either. The crimson refinement gunpowder was actually a weak item if it wasn't used to fight against the spirit race. The skill required wasn't complicated and wouldn't involve the core skill of the crystallized medicine creation technique. If he could use it in exchange for military title and contribution points, why wouldn't he? As expected, the lieutenant colonel took the initiative to speak up. Don't worry. You need to know that the crimson refinement gunpowder is of extreme importance in our impending war against the spirit race. If there is a sufficient amount of it, it can be our killing weapon. Although the mission is a little difficult and we might be forcing you into doing things, if you have any special requests for the type of people you need as your subordinates, you can list them. We'll prioritize the arrangement of your helpers. As long as you list the conditions, we'll be able to find you the talent that you require. He sounded extremely confident. All right, I agree to it. Feng Lin didn't hesitate and agreed on the spot. Sir, please send me the records of the medicinal refinement masters in the Great Wall University and the military. I wish to go through them to make my selection. I already have them ready. Seeing that Feng Lin had agreed, the lieutenant colonel smiled and nodded, sending over a tremendous amount of information. Feng Lin tapped it open and his identity microchip displayed many people's appearances, information, identities, and most importantly, their abilities in medicinal refinement. All of them were rare medicinal refinement masters in the interstellar space, and the lowest amongst them was a high-grade medicinal refiner. There were also quite many medicinal refinement grandmasters. Chapter 394, Criteria for Talent. Lanskino, high-grade medicinal refiner. Age 35, born in Rome Federation Dice Planet. Chen Donglai, medicinal refinement grandmaster. Age 52, born in Huaxia Star Republic's Medical King Planet. Oakland, high-grade medicinal refiner. Age 31, born in Europa Alliance's Charo Planet. Many figures flashed before his eyes. All of them were medicinal refinement masters, dressed in military uniform, and appeared very spirited. Interstellar humans' average lifespan exceeded 200 years old, and those who were 40+ years old were considered to be in the prime of their lives. None of them were lower than a high-grade medicinal refiner, and they were all at the prime of their lives. Clearly, they were the seeds that the Great Wall University was focusing on nurturing, and they had specially been sent to learn the crimson gunpowder's refinement technique from Feng Lin. These are all the information on the medicinal refinement masters that the Great Wall University is providing you with. What do you think? The lieutenant colonel looked at Feng Lin and smiled, feeling confident that Feng Lin would be satisfied. Feng Lin read on, but his brows furrowed tightly. Sir, they won't be able to learn my technique. They won't be able to learn it. Upon hearing that, the lieutenant colonel felt puzzled. These people weren't ordinary people and were at least high-grade medicinal refiners or even medicinal refinement grandmasters. They were considered to be the elites amongst elites in the Great Wall Army and were the talents that were being nurtured with added emphasis. If it wasn't because the skill of refining the crimson refinement gunpowder was too important, it was impossible to have such great talents to be sent to work under a second lieutenant. It was merely a refinement technique for a single type of medicine. How could they possibly not be able to learn it? If it wasn't because Feng Lin didn't seem to be lying, the lieutenant colonel would really suspect if Feng Lin was doing this on purpose, not intending to pass down the technique. He had already received the military title in exchange for imparting the skill. If he were to attempt to intentionally hide this technique, the consequences would be dire. It was impossible for someone who could come out first amongst the freshmen to be such a fool. The lieutenant colonel's expression turned dark as he waited for Feng Lin's explanation. Feng Lin knew that the lieutenant colonel had thought too much when he saw the latter's countenance changed. Feng Lin smiled, it's not that I'm not willing to teach them, but they really won't be able to learn it. Refining the crimson refinement gunpowder requires my unique medicine refinement technique, the crystallized medicine creation technique. It pursues the crystallization of liquid gene potions, and the individual's grade doesn't matter. The technique requires a unique mental type gene, using the invisible mental energy to control the refinement process and analyze the medicinal properties, in order to condense them into a tiny crystal with explosive effect. If the individual hasn't awoken the mental type gene, they wouldn't be able to meet my requirements no matter how high their grade is. Crystallized medicine creation technique? He didn't understand a single thing that Feng Lin had said. Why haven't I heard of such a refinement technique before? However, there is a great possibility that this is true. It might be because a new medicine refinement technique was used that the crimson refinement gunpowder, being such a mysterious item, can be produced. The lieutenant colonel thought and then said, it seems that this is my oversight. How about this, you can just list down the type of medicinal refinement masters you require. Our Great Wall Guards Army will definitely help you find them. It seems that the Great Wall Guards Army is really placing the crimson refinement gunpowder in high regard. Feng Lin thought to himself. However, this wasn't a bad thing. The more they valued the crimson refinement gunpowder, the greater his worth would be and the more the benefits he could obtain. The conditions aren't too tough. Feng Lin gave it some thought before saying, I only have 2 criteria. Firstly, all the medicinal refinement masters must have awakened mental type or psychological type mythological genes, and are able to move items with their minds. Secondly, I don't have any requirements for the medicinal refinement master's grade. It's fine as long as they have reached the initial grade. However, they must absolutely follow my orders. Otherwise, I want to have the right to fire them. I don't wish to have anyone interfering with our internal affairs. When the lieutenant colonel heard this, he immediately went deep into thought. The first condition was very strange, but it was still acceptable. However, the second condition was a little difficult. To think that a mere second lieutenant wished to have complete autonomy over his own team. This was something very rare. However, he still nodded after giving it some thought. Professional matters should be left to the professionals. When the time came, everything would be determined by the results. If Feng Lin could complete this mission, everything would be negotiable. If he couldn't, not only would they take back the autonomy, but he might not even be able to keep his title as a second lieutenant. These are all fine. Are you sure that you don't have any grade restrictions for the medicinal refinement masters? Even initial grade medicinal refiners are fine? The lieutenant colonel did a final verification, finding this to be unbelievable. Sir, please rest assured. Feng Lin smiled and replied, The most crucial step of refining the crimson refinement gunpowder requires one to have control over their mental powers. Other than that, the other refining steps aren't too complicated. As long as they are willing to learn, even initial-grade medicinal refiners will be able to succeed. I see. Since that's the case, I'll select new refinement masters for you. The lieutenant colonel said this and kept on tapping his finger on his identity microchip, giving out various orders. Feng Lin took this time to look around the refinement chamber, checking the internal environment as well as the refining tools. Dong dong dong. Very soon, a series of uniform but urgent footsteps got closer. Attention! A loud cry rang out and everyone stopped outside the laboratory. Come in! The lieutenant colonel let out a deep bellow. The laboratory's door was pushed open. Over 100 medicinal refinement masters of varying ages, both young and old, entered. The younger ones were about the same age as Feng Lin, while the older ones already had gray hair. However, without a single exception, all of them emitted auras of mental waves. The lieutenant colonel walked up to them and said, "You're now given a chance to earn military merit. This is the logistic unit's second lieutenant Feng Lin. In the future, you'll be learning from him a new refinement technique to create the crimson refinement gunpowder. This is a brand new damaging gene potion and is the spirit race's bane. It has great damaging prowess on the battlefield. Those who can learn it successfully can have the chance to be promoted to a military officer." Everyone was taken by shock and was secretly feeling excited. It was a rare opportunity to be able to take part in such an important mission. As medicinal refinement masters, with each additional refinement technique they mastered, the stronger their foundation and the greater their chances that they'd be able to raise their grade as refinement masters. Let alone the fact that this was the crimson refinement gunpowder, a medicine that already had a great reputation in the Great Wall Army. Where else could they find an opportunity like this? They mustn't pass this chance. They secretly felt elated, but when they saw that their leader Feng Lin was of such a young age, their smiles froze. Although Feng Lin was the inventor of the crimson refinement gunpowder, he was just a year one university student. How capable could he be? Shouldn't he be handing over the medicine refinement technique and then scram? As rare medicinal refinement masters, many of them were arrogant. They assessed Feng Lin rudely, filling with judgmental feelings. It was only because of the second lieutenant's prestige that they didn't dare say much. However, Feng Lin had already seen their reactions. He stepped forward, wore a solemn expression and said, "From now on, you'll be following my instructions to refine medicine. Only those who qualify can stay. Those who don't follow orders can scram immediately." His voice was like an explosive thunder, giving no regard to their feelings. When the medicinal refinement masters heard this, all of their expressions turned grim. However, Feng Lin didn't give them any chance to adapt to the situation. No matter how talented a medicinal refinement master was or how strong their medicine refinement abilities were, if they couldn't be used by him, there was no way that he'd be keeping them. These people might appear arrogant, but none of them were foolish. No matter how aggrieved they felt, none of them moved a step. This was a rare opportunity. If they were to miss out on this chance, it'd be very difficult for them if they wished to take part in such an important yet safe mission. None of them were willing to let go of this chance easily. Watch me as I refine the medicine. Learn as much as you can. I'll only be keeping 20 people. Those who can learn the most and the fastest will have greater chances of staying behind. Feng Lin didn't pay them any heed and let out a deep bellow as he started. His movements were smooth like the drifting clouds and flowing water, as well as being very orderly. Under the control of his hands and mind, many medicinal herbs produced mysterious changes. Everyone present instantly stared with their eyes wide open. Chapter 395, Strict Appraisal. Many test tubes floated in the air and moved around orderly as if they were being controlled by many invisible hands. Extraction, dissolving, heating up. A set of medicine refining procedure flowed out smoothly like water, appearing very natural. Humans only had 2 hands. By right, the medicine refining process should be done step by step, and potions should be refined bottle by bottle. However, Feng Lin used his mental energy to control the containers and refine 10 sets of crimson refinement gunpowder concurrently, reducing the amount of time required by a lot. The rate of production was increased greatly, but yet it didn't go off track. There were no conflicts at all. All the medicinal refinement masters stared with eyes wide open when they saw this. How did this person awaken his mental energy? How is it so amazing to be doing 10 things at once with such ease? It seems as if he is far from reaching his limits. Although he was only a grand cultivator, Feng Lin had already gone very far on the path of mental type gene, far surpassing everyone else. Everyone was rendered speechless and no longer dared to underestimate him. Medicine refinement technique was medicine refinement technique. It wasn't related to one's cultivation and age. Just from what they had seen, this person's medicine refinement technique would definitely stand out amongst all of them. However, this still didn't convince them to willingly be under Feng Lin's leadership. As rare medicinal refinement masters in interstellar space, they enjoyed high status and their level of arrogance also far surpassed that of others. They wouldn't submit so easily. Right now, 10 bottles of translucent red liquid were concurrently refined successfully by Feng Lin. They were placed in one spot and under the light's illumination, they emitted a pure red glow. This is it. This is too simple. Was it really so easy to refine the crimson refinement gunpowder? According to the records of the battle, the crimson refinement gunpowder definitely had a tremendous damaging impact on the spirit race. How could a bottle of liquid do something like this? No matter how extravagant Feng Lin's movements were, it couldn't hide the fact that this medicine refinement technique was very simple. Disapproving expressions appeared on their faces as they were filled with puzzlement and perplexity. The final medicinal effect they derived from the refinement process had clashed with its actual use on an intrinsic level. It isn't scientific at all. This isn't how it is supposed to be. Just as they were feeling perplexed, their eyes opened wide at the next instant. Take a good look. The next step is what causes the crimson refinement gunpowder to go through a qualitative change. If you were to miss this step, you won't get a second chance at observing it. Feng Lin let out a deep bellow and instantly started operating. His eyes were radiating silver light and the invisible spirit force gushed out fiercely. He beckoned with his hand and the flames rose fiercely. The containers storing the crimson refinement gunpowder started to be roasted in the flames. Feng Lin kept on forming hand seals that were like butterflies that fluttered gracefully, emitting a deep sense of mysteries. Under the control of the flames, the heat seeped into the liquid and kept on evaporating it. Split. Feng Lin let out a deep bellow and his spirit force was like a blade, separating the liquid into hundreds of thousands of portions instantly. The liquid was kept apart from each other and then underwent high-speed evaporation and dissolution, turning into much tiny sand-like matter. This mysterious change appeared like a miracle before these medicinal refinement masters, causing their breathing to become anxious. The Gene Potion's liquid possesses high energy and radiation characteristics. Wouldn't they explode if they were roasted directly with flames? This was like playing with explosives on flames. The slightest mistake would end them. Just as they were feeling extremely flabbergasted, the crimson refinement gunpowder in Feng Lin's was gradually refined, presenting a red sand-like matter with the medicinal prowess restrained. The medicinal refinement masters exchanged glances. Even though there were too many things they didn't understand, there was nothing that they could say when the truth was right before them. You guys can start now. Replicate the medicine refinement steps that I had displayed earlier. Remember, I'll only want 20 people at most. If you wish to stay, then put in all your effort. Feng Lin said calmly and vacuum-packed the completed crimson refinement gunpowder, putting them on the medicine refining platform to let everyone take a look. Hearing that, the medicinal refinement masters hurried to make their preparations. There were all sorts of equipment in this high-grade refinement chamber. Any medicinal refinement master would be able to fully display their capabilities. They recalled Feng Lin's earlier actions when refining the medicine and attempted systematically. Feng Lin and the lieutenant colonel started going around and looking at them, not letting go of the slightest mistake, and nodded uncontrollably. Those who could become medicinal refinement masters were no fools, and they picked up things very quickly. Although they had only had one look, they were already refining the medicine systematically, looking good. If they could really learn how to refine the crimson refinement gunpowder, then it would greatly reduce the pressure on Feng Lin. Just then, his eyes narrowed and turned extremely grim. He walked up to an arrogant-looking figure and asked in a deep voice, "Why aren't you following my medicine refining steps? Why did you add the neutralizing liquid 3 steps earlier?" The person lifted his head. As if he didn't think he was at fault, he smiled and said, "I learned precision medicinal refinement from the best medicine refining faction in interstellar space. According to my calculations, this can increase the effect of the gene potion by 30%. Therefore, I chose this better method." He wore a proud expression as he said this. Feng Lin threw a glance at him and turned to leave without saying another word. Seeing that Feng Lin was speechless after hearing what he said, the guy grinned. "Even though you invented the crimson refinement gunpowder, you didn't go through proper training and won't know how amazing the precision medicinal refinement is. After I've learned how to refine the crimson refinement gunpowder, I'll take over the leadership of this team sooner or later. Sir, please send that fool out. He won't be able to learn my medicine refinement technique," Feng Lin said to the lieutenant colonel. This seemingly normal line instantly caused that guy's smile to freeze up. "What? Make yourself clear." The guy's face turned flush red and he shouted hysterically. However, Feng Lin didn't even want to be bothered by him. The crimson refinement gunpowder's technique was what he had simplified from alchemy. Every single step was closely tied to the final product. This person thought that he could be better than the cultivation magnates who founded alchemy in ancient times? Wanting to be a smart aleck just after looking at the medicine refining technique once. What was he if not a fool? It'd be a waste of breath to say anything more to this guy. "Take him away." Seeing that Feng Lin had decided, the lieutenant colonel waved his hand and said in a deep voice. A group of soldiers came crowding over. Being forcibly driven out, the medicinal refinement master's expression became distorted and he let out an enraged bellow. "Jealousy. You must be jealous and is afraid that I'll surpass you. That's why you want to drive me away. Do you dare to compete with me? Let's see who is able to refine a higher quality crimson refinement gunpowder after I've learned to refine it." Feng Lin didn't even throw him another glance and treated as if the guy didn't exist. The medicinal refinement master wanted to say more. However, at the next instant, the soldiers crowded over and covered his mouth harshly, forcibly dragging him out. Punishing one as an example. When the other medicinal refinement masters saw this, they were instantly shaken with fright. Boom. One of them got distracted and didn't control the flame's temperature. The test tube immediately exploded. Eliminate this person as well. Seeing this, Feng Lin shook his head. How could one be able to grasp his technique if their minds were so unstable? The crystallized medicine creation technique had high requirements and the slightest mistake would bring about dire consequences. 2 people were dragged out ruthlessly in succession. When the other people saw this, they didn't dare get distracted and all of them focused on refining the gene potion at hand. However, what they hadn't expected was that the nightmare had just begun. Why did you increase the flame's temperature so high? Are you being anxious about seeking results? The basic rules for refining each medicine are all different. Eliminate. What are you looking around for? You aren't attentive. Eliminate. Steps for the medicine refinement are all over the place. Inaccurate dosage used. Eliminate. Feng Lin was merciless. If they didn't meet his requirements, regardless of their level and seniority, they would be eliminated. The remaining people felt as if there was a heavy rock weighing down in their hearts, and they didn't dare show any signs of carelessness anymore. All of them realized that this test's strictness level was beyond their imaginations. Chapter 396, Final Selection. Don't use people who are full of tricks. Don't use people who are full of schemes. Don't use people who seem to be compliant on the surface but are secretly disagreeable to how things are done. Feng Lin was extremely strict. He didn't care about these medicinal refinement masters' identities. If they didn't meet his requirements, they were not going to be used. Feng Lin continued to eliminate them one after another, not caring if he would end up with less than 20 people in the end. If he didn't like them, he would send them away immediately. As one of the top 10 universities, the Great Wall University had no lack of talent. What Feng Lin wanted was obedience, and not people who were conceited and presumptuous. He mustn't allow a single person's mistakes or faults to ruin and implicate the entire group. People who only knew trickeries weren't just useless, but would bring trouble. Feng Lin wanted to hit the target of producing 1,000 kilograms within a month and get a military promotion. The Great Wall Guard's army was the most elite troop amongst the interstellar humans. If he could rise to a high enough rank in the future, he would be able to have his own troops. It would then bring nothing but benefits to him. When that time came, not only would he be able to grasp his own destiny, but he might also become one of the dominators over the interstellar humans' destiny. The future was worth the anticipation, but he would still need to start bit by bit with what he had before him. As people who didn't have a calm mind were eliminated, the remaining people became a lot more honest. They went through the medicine refining steps carefully without skipping anything, not daring to show any carelessness or deploy useless tricks. They all knew that Feng Lin wouldn't go easy on them at all. As expected of medicinal refinement masters. Even though they had only seen the process once, they had memorized most of the refining steps. Very soon, many bottles of liquid crimson refinement gunpowder were completed. Although the medicinal effects were greatly discounted and the end product's quality wasn't high due to their lack of experience, as long as they could succeed this time around, it wouldn't be difficult for them to refine it again in the future. Right now, Feng Lin's gaze turned increasingly serious. The next and final step was also the most crucial, crystallized medicine creation. The refining steps before this didn't require much technique. This was the only step that could bring a qualitative change to the crimson refinement gunpowder. Otherwise, this would at most be a liquid potion that had high radiation and high energy. Everyone started the refining process, showing a great resemblance to what Feng Lin had done. They used the flames to evaporate the liquid, sending out their mental energy to sense the flame's temperature. The liquid slowly vaporized. Boom! An explosion rang out. Someone's potion released a high-speed reaction as it had been subject to a strong roast from the flames and suddenly exploded. Feng Lin shook his head. This guy only knew of the form and didn't understand the principle behind the steps, thus had blindly imitated it. Eliminate. Boom, boom, boom. This person's explosion seemed to have kick-started things, and a series of explosions rang out in succession. Many bottles of liquid suddenly exploded. Eliminate. 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 Toward these people who only knew to imitate and didn't really understand medicine refinement itself, Feng Lin showed them no mercy and eliminated all of them. At last, the remaining people showed more resemblance in their refining process. They analyzed the crimson refinement gunpowder's crystallization structure. Under the microscopic sight, they saw that the sand-like matter presented many rhombus-shaped crystals that were connected together. It was as if they were one entity, and the medicinal prowess was firmly locked in. The clearer they could see this, the more they were in admiration of how amazing the crystallized medicine creation technique was. To be thinking of things that predecessors didn't dare to think of, and to do things that predecessors didn't dare to attempt, it was priceless. Was this mysterious and profound technique really something that this Feng Lin has thought up of by himself? They found this to be unbelievable. The crystallization medicine refining technique had brought up the gene potion manufacturing art to a new level, locking the violent medicinal prowess into many tiny crystals. Only by doing this could it ensure that the crimson refinement gunpowder's violent medicinal prowess would sustain, in an amazingly balanced state where it wouldn't explode but could at any moment. They were instantly struck by a great feeling of comprehension. However, even though they could understand this, the structure within the crystals was too mysterious. It was simply a work of art. It was too difficult to be able to achieve it. It was no wonder that Feng Lin had requested the awakening of mental genes as a requirement when he was recruiting. Only immaterial mental energy would be able to undergo detailed sensing and control the medicinal reactions on the microscopic level. In fact, given how big the universe was, there were many capable talents, and many famous medicine refining styles were already attempting to use mental energy to support the medicine refining process. However, crystallizing potions in order to lock in their medicinal prowess was unheard of. They wore admiring expressions as if a door to a brand new world had been opened for them. They had a vague feeling that if they could really study the secrets behind this crimson refinement gunpowder, even if they were eliminated, they would go through a tremendous leap in their level. The remaining refinement masters were fully focused and started getting into action. They carefully placed the crimson refinement gunpowder's liquid and roasted them on the flames, controlling the fire carefully. They then let their mental energy seep into the medicine, experiencing the slightest changes and then slowly crystallizing the liquid. When Feng Lin saw this scene, he secretly nodded. It seemed that the remaining 50 or more people had understood the basic principles behind the crystallized medicine creation technique. However, this wasn't over yet. There was still one crucial step in the actual operation. If they couldn't do it, he wouldn't want them either. That was to split up the potion into sections and treat them individually. This required powerful mental energy to dissolve the potion, split them up, and then vaporize them. Otherwise, the crimson refinement gunpowder's medicinal prowess would be too powerful. If they were all gathered onto one spot, it would be very difficult to turn them into sand-like crystals. This clearly had a high requirement for one's mental energy. If they couldn't do this and their mental energy wasn't up to standard, they clearly wouldn't be able to learn this either. Boom, boom, boom. Things went on as he expected. Many people could only sense with their mental energy but didn't have enough to perform psi force. Therefore, it was hard for them to split up the potion. The intense fire prowess instantly caused the crystal that had just taken form to explode completely. Feng Lin shook his head. Those people understood that they had been eliminated and lowered their heads, leaving dejectedly. When they passed by Feng Lin, they looked at each other and then bowed toward him, convinced by his capabilities. Although Feng Lin was young, they were now very clear that his refinement technique was definitely far above theirs. If this technique could be developed thoroughly, Feng Lin would be able to become a grandmaster amongst medicine refinement masters. Although they were eliminated, they had benefited a lot just from witnessing and having personally studied the crimson refinement gunpowder. It naturally had a tremendous benefit to them. Feng Lin didn't reject their kind intentions. This was something that he deserved. After the many eliminations, there were only 18 people left. They started the refining process, splitting up the crimson refinement gunpowder and showing signs of being able to complete the crystallization process. Although some of them hadn't fully suppressed the violent energy and it seemed that their work was going to explode at any moment, they were on the right path. If Feng Lin carefully guided them on this, they wouldn't be far from success. Seeing this, Feng Lin nodded. These should be the final people selected. His own team had been formed. Chapter 397, Teaching. This is the final list you've selected. The lieutenant colonel looked at the list of members Feng Lin had handed him and frowned. Isn't 18 too few? Will you be able to complete the military mission like this? Feng Lin smiled. 18 people aren't few at all. It's mainly because the crimson refinement gunpowder's refining skill has a high requirement of one's mental energy. Currently, these are the only ones who meet the requirement. 18 people are enough. It won't be hard to produce the Crimson Refinement gunpowder once they've learned how to do so. I can guarantee that we'll be able to refine 500 kilograms or more of the Crimson Refinement gunpowder within a month. It's not impossible to hit 1,000 kilograms either. It all depends on how fast they learn. I see. Hearing that, the lieutenant colonel nodded. It was still the same old thing. Professional tasks will be left for professionals to handle. Since Feng Lin said this, then he wouldn't interfere too much. The results would speak for themselves. If Feng Lin didn't manage to fulfill his promise in the end, there would naturally be punishments waiting for him. It was unacceptable for one to go back on their words in the military. Since that's the case, your team can start preparing immediately. I'm excited to see your results 1 month later. The lieutenant colonel looked at Feng Lin with a meaningful gaze, his tone filled with expectations. Feng Lin smiled and nodded, appearing very calm. Seeing that Feng Lin was so confident, the lieutenant colonel uncontrollably felt assured. He then led the many soldiers and left. Since the members had been selected, he didn't interfere with Feng Lin's following arrangements. All the recruited medicinal refinement masters fell silent, and this continued for very long. They appeared thankful. Their attempts had all failed, and they thought that they would definitely be eliminated. They didn't expect to end up being selected in the end. Even they themselves found this to be unbelievable. Feng Lin threw a glance at them. Everyone looked back at him silently, filled with unease. They were clear that this person was merciless, and they didn't dare to do anything funny. The reward for this military mission was huge, and it took them a lot of effort to stay behind. If they were to be driven out, there would be nowhere for them to go crying to. Seeing this, Feng Lin nodded. For the recruited people, not only were their mental aptitudes strong enough, but their medicine refining skills weren't bad either. Most importantly, they were obedient. This was what he valued the most. Those pricks who didn't know any better had all been eliminated. Facing the many pairs of eyes that craved knowledge, he didn't try to mystify them and said directly, "After this medicine refining simulation, you guys should be aware that the process of refining doesn't take too much skill. The most crucial step is the crystallized medicine creation technique that I had created. This is the crux that will cause the medicine to undergo a qualitative change, and it can only succeed with sufficient mental energy. Congratulations! Since you are still here, it means that you've met the innate requirement. Next, I'll explain the secret of success behind the refining of the Crimson Refinement gunpowder." When the many medicinal refinement masters heard this, they couldn't help but hold their breaths and pay full attention, fearing that they would miss out on the slightest detail. The trick to successfully performing the crystallized medicine creation technique is the way you use mental energy. The crystallization of the Crimson Refinement gunpowder must be split into 3 steps: mental sensory, mental control, and mental temperature control. Mental sensory is to use one's mental energy to constantly sense the medicine's medicinal properties and perform fine-tuning. Mental control is to use one's psi-force to control the combination of the medicinal properties molecules, allowing them to form a stable crystallized structure and lock in the medicinal prowess. The standard for the Crimson Refinement gunpowder is the most perfectly stable 6-sided structure. Only with this can the violent medicinal prowess be suppressed. Otherwise, it'll explode. However, this isn't enough. The most crucial thing is to isolate the liquid with your mental energy and vaporize them in parts, eventually forming the sand-like state. The 3rd step is mental temperature control. The Crimson Refinement gunpowder's medicinal effects aren't too stable, and in the crystallization process, they can easily show an explosive reaction. The slightest bit of temperature increment can lead to a chain of terrifying consequences. When working with the crystallization, you must use your mental energy to constantly adjust the flame's temperature to achieve the final product. The crystallized medicine creation technique is an extremely precise skill. The slightest bit of difference can lead to vast differences. You must be able to perform every step to an extremity. Any slightest mistake will end up in failure. Feng Lin explained the refining technique for the crimson refinement gunpowder in detail, teaching them. When the medicinal refinement masters heard that, they were suddenly struck with a realization. However, this wasn't over. Feng Lin continued saying, "The reason you guys had failed the refining process is because you only know mental sensory and mental control, but know nothing about mental temperature control. Next, I'll be teaching you the unique fire control method for refining the crimson refinement gunpowder. Take a good look. I'll only demonstrate it once. If you miss out on this chance, then you can only try to figure it out yourself." The moment Feng Lin said this, everyone immediately stared at his every action in full attention. Right now, he was already forming repeated hand seals, and a ball of flames kept on changing under his control. Sometimes, it would burn fiercely, sometimes, it would be calm as water, sometimes, it would spin like the wind. The most ordinary flames were rendered into all sorts of forms, and his control over the fire had reached an amazing realm where it would go as he wished. It was an act of turning something normal into something really amazing. The medicinal refinement masters remembered the hand seal's changes, sensed the permeating mental waves in the air, and started practicing. They wanted to acquire this mysterious mental ability as soon as possible. Feng Lin quickly finished his demonstration and didn't repeat himself. As the team leader, he had a reputation to maintain. He wasn't here to look after these people. It was already a heaven-blessed opportunity for these medicinal refinement masters to be able to witness the crucial part of the crystallized medicine creation technique. If they didn't even know how to value this opportunity, there'd be no need for him to keep them. Thankfully, the people who were left were clever enough and learned things very quickly. No one dared be careless in the slightest, and Feng Lin nodded in satisfaction as he looked at them. Then, under his guidance, many medicinal refinement masters started to attempt refining the crimson refinement gunpowder once again. There were all sorts of ingredients in this high-grade refinement chamber. They could use them freely, practicing non-stop until they were successful. In order to deal with the impending war against the spirits, the Great Wall Army viewed the crimson refinement gunpowder in high regard. In order to obtain a tremendous amount of gunpowder, they didn't care about the costs. Feng Lin kept on providing guidance on the side, pointing out their mistakes in their refining technique. With a tremendous amount of ingredients supplied, the 18 of them got increasingly closer to the final step of success. In merely half a day, someone successfully refined a sand-like item. Although it eventually exploded, that person was only just one step away from success. Feng Lin nodded. Once these people were successful in the refining process, he would be relieved from such a heavy refining mission. He could take the chance to do his own things. Feng Lin felt as if he could see the scene in which he was promoted to a lieutenant 1 month later. Chapter 398, Rapid Improvement. One had the intent to teach, and a group of people had the intent to learn. Medicine refiners were geneticists who were originally part of the elites among interstellar humans. Their intelligence was more developed than their peers, and the majority of them had highly retentive memories and a deep grasp of profound knowledge with regards to genetic knowledge and mythological theory. These people whom Feng Lin retained were all those who were obedient to him. And with him personally imparting the medicinal refinement technique for the crimson refinement gunpowder, they all learned very quickly. Feng Lin just had to demonstrate once, and they would immediately be able to learn 70% to 80% of it. They only needed to pay more attention to the minor details and practice more to achieve perfection. If they practiced for 3 days, it meant 3 days of failure. Even now, there wasn't any successful concoction that had left the refinement chamber. Feng Lin also didn't act personally. Other than cultivating assiduously, he would guide these people on the medicinal crystallization creation technique. Without a foundation in alchemy, without enough mental energy to survey the microscopic world, it would be exceedingly difficult to master the medicinal crystallization creation technique. However, he wasn't worried about them at all. Although the speed was slow, they were gaining the knowledge and experience gradually bit by bit. As long as they understood the core point, all other things would come to them naturally. It didn't matter even if they still failed for now. The team responsible for refining the crimson refinement gunpowder began to improve slowly. Finally, they arrived at the final step. This final step was also the most crucial one. They had to refine the liquid solution into solid crystals. It involved splitting of atoms, the control of temperature, and the amount of spirit force inserted. All these were details that needed extreme precision. One had to fully focus. In truth, all of them had already mastered all the previous steps. They were only stuck in the final step and had no way of breaking past the barrier. They could only depend on huge amounts of practice to improve bit by bit, searching for the crux. Finally, someone succeeded on the 6th day. This person who succeeded was actually a young man of about 20. Other than Feng Lin, he was one of the youngest in the refinement chamber. He was a 3rd-grade medicinal refiner and had one of the lowest grades among those who remained. Hence, he understood how fortunate it was for him to remain behind. With regard to Feng Lin's request, he didn't dare to be careless at all. He practiced through day and night, spending all his time in the refinement chamber. He finally became the first person to succeed in concocting the crimson refinement gunpowder. Although his current success rate was still very low, roughly around 10%, a success was still a success. If one succeeded once, they could definitely succeed a second time. As one continued to practice, the success rate would naturally increase. Although he wouldn't be able to reach Feng Lin's height and achieve a 100% success rate due to the difference in talent and ability, he could still become somewhat accomplished. As long as he was willing to put in the effort, it was possible for him to achieve a success rate of around 50%. This was already sufficient. From today onwards, Hanjin will be your vice captain. In the future, you can ask him for guidance regarding the crimson refinement gunpowder's concoction. I've already shown all of you the technique, it's just that each person's understanding and feel is different. You all have to find the rhythm you are suitable with, because I won't be able to teach you anything regarding that. Maybe, Hanjin can give you all some inspiration, Feng Lin stated. With regard to people who wanted to learn seriously, he wouldn't be stingy and would reward them when needed. He directly promoted the lowest-ranked mid-grade medicinal refiner to the vice captain position. It was understandable that others would feel sullen. Among them, there were many high-grade medicinal refiners. It was already embarrassing that a young man like Feng Lin became their captain. Now, another young brat who was merely a mid-grade medicinal refiner actually climbed to the top of their heads and became their vice captain. Feng Lin couldn't care less about their feelings. Even if these people felt reluctance, they had to accept it no matter what. Although they were high-grade medicinal refiners and many were proficient in profound medicinal refinement techniques, they could be of no help to Feng Lin's team at this moment. Since this was the Crimson Refinement Gunpowder team, the most important criteria was naturally the concoction of the Crimson Refinement Gunpowder. This mid-grade medicinal refiner was the first to succeed. This indicated that his attainments in the understanding of Crimson Refinement Gunpowder were above the rest. He had earned the position of vice captain in this team with his own abilities. When Hanjin heard this, his eyes widened, a shocked look appeared on his face. "Captain, how can this be?" His voice trembled. "These geneticists are all my seniors, and I just succeeded due to luck. How can I guide them? This brat knows what's good for him." The others glanced at each other as their eyes flickered. Feng Lin ignored them. He patted Hanjin on his shoulder. "Don't undervalue yourself. If I say you can, you can. Even if you can't, you have to make it. Given how strict the requirements are, there's no such thing as luck. Since you can succeed, it means that your understanding is greater than them. What can't you do?" Hanjin's heart was filled with gratitude. He wanted to say something but didn't know what to say. Feng Lin waved his hand. "My decision is final. No need to persuade me to change my mind." Han Zhen opened his mouth and closed it again when he heard Feng Lin's words. Upon seeing the sullen looks on the faces of others, Feng Lin coldly smiled. In this team, your capability is everything. Regardless of your background, your grade, or your experience, if you all are unwilling, you can leave. The people from the Great Wall Army would be glad to replace you guys. His voice was backed up by an awe-inspiring tone, causing the geneticists in the team to tremble, no longer daring to have foolish thoughts. They lowered their heads and continued to research the crimson refinement gunpowder. Han Zhen had a thankful look on his face. He knew that his captain did this to help him establish his might. In the future, these people would no longer dare play their little tricks and target him. And under the stimulation from Han Zhen's success, the others began to put in more effort as they practiced. With a good start, the following concoction attempts were smoother as well. More and more people succeeded in the concoction of the crimson refinement gunpowder. The refinement chamber finally began its production officially. Feng Lin's guidance was the key. When the other refiners attempted the concoction, he would instantly point out any flaw he spotted and remedy them with his advance, allowing the concoction to be smoother, as well as allowing the medicinal refiners to gain experience. This caused their success rate to become higher and higher as well. The production rate of the refinement chamber increased day by day. 20 kilograms, 50 kilograms, 80 kilograms, 100 kg. They had no production at all during the first few days. But once the ball got rolling, under the effort of sentient robots and geneticists, the refinement chamber became a machine responsible for the mass production of the crimson refinement gunpowder. The amount of production was growing exponentially by the day. In this case, the rate of improvement was simply godly, as there was no problem for them to achieve a production of 100 kilograms of crimson refinement gunpowder per day. As for Feng Lin himself, he grew more and more idle and only needed to oversee the production as a whole. During his free time, he naturally focused on his cultivation. For now, his life was relatively quiet and peaceful. His cultivation also caused his genetic potential to soar. After 7 days, he gained another free heaven genetic point. He then added it to the spiritual stone monkey gene decisively, strengthening it to 4 points. His Monkey King domain also expanded to a radius of 12 meters. The space and laws within his domain were under his absolute control. And today, the production of the medicinal refinement chamber had already reached 800 kilograms. Feng Lin was prepared to head out and accept the mission from the school when the production hit 1,000 kilograms. But at this moment, the door to the refinement chamber suddenly opened. It was none other than that lieutenant colonel with a group of valiant warriors. All of them had heavy expressions on their faces. "Sir, what's the matter?" Feng Lin walked out as he asked calmly. "How much crimson refinement gunpowder have you produced now? Can you hand them all over?" "We are in urgent need of it," said the lieutenant colonel heavily. 800 kilograms. Although Feng Lin had no idea why the lieutenant colonel was so anxious, Feng Lin still replied honestly. "So much?" The lieutenant colonel was startled before joy appeared on his face a moment later. "Feng Lin, my judgment of you was right indeed. The timing is perfect. With so much crimson refinement gunpowder being produced, it would be extremely effective for our plan." Even before Feng Lin could think things through, the lieutenant colonel's face suddenly became strict as he spoke with a solemn voice. "Feng Lin, because your production rate is so outstanding, I believe 1,000 kilograms would not pose a problem to you. Since this is the case, there's no need to wait anymore. Now, I will represent the Great Wall Army to promote you to a lieutenant. Lieutenant Feng Lin, I'm now officially informing you about this. The spirit race just launched an attack. The interstellar racial war is about to start." Chapter 399, Spirit Race Attack. Darkness, the eternal color of the universe. Outer space was filled with a deathly silence and there was nothing else. Only the light from the distant clusters of stars could be seen flickering. Outside the star fortresses, dark currents flowed forth like the tides. The students and soldiers of the Great Wall University and Great Wall Army all inclined their heads and stared at the sky, involuntarily holding their breaths. Feng Lin and the lieutenant colonel stood among the crowd, a heavy expression on their faces. The atmosphere was unprecedentedly tense. In the dark space, a thick blanket of boundlessly vast dark clouds moved through the sky. Everywhere they went, the stars in the surroundings would lose their colors. All energy seemed to be devoured cleanly, causing the atmosphere to become extremely cold and desolate. The dark currents were like tide water, coming waves after waves, extending forever into the distance. This caused many to feel despair when they saw it. After the apparatus revealed their true forms, everyone could see that the dark currents were actually spirit monsters. Their numbers were in the millions, and they were of all shapes and sizes. In fact, there were many spirit species that were undiscovered by humans appearing here now. They could only give it a preliminary name based on their appearances. There were some that looked like man-eating plants with giant saw teeth, some that looked like giant water bear bugs with malevolent-looking mouths and claws, and even some that resembled winged dragons that had incomparably sharp claws. There were masses of spirit monsters everywhere. The spirit black tide came wave after wave as though they wanted to completely engulf the Great Wall University. The spirit tide has truly come. In just one more hour, they would arrive at the Great Wall. We cannot allow them to wantonly destroy our Milky Way galaxy. Only one of us can survive. Inside the fortresses, a commotion could be heard. With the sudden attack of the spirit race, people inside the Great Wall University weren't afraid. Instead, their battle intents were gushing out ferociously. For the past several thousand years, the people of the Great Wall University had been guarding the boundaries of the Milky Way galaxy, fighting at the front line against alien races. The reason why human civilization could prosper was all because of the generations of effort paid by the Great Wall Army, the one that had to bear the burden of alien invasions. Thousands of years of bloody battles and the debt of hatred from their ancestors were accumulating up until now. There was simply no way to resolve this grudge. This was why a commotion could be heard within the Great Wall University. Kill. I must get revenge for my older brother. My grandpa, my father, my big brother all sacrificed their lives to defend the spirit tide. Now, it is my turn. A battle between different races. Anyone can win, but humanity cannot lose. The battle intent surged as the soldiers began to don their equipment. All the star fortresses entered the highest state of vigilance. Over 1 million thick and powerful cannons extended from the walls, aiming at the black tide in the distance, preparing to fire. Not a single person felt fear. They were filled with excitement and the desire to fight. It felt like a pot of water just boiled. The emotions of everyone was high, charging up the atmosphere. Somehow, it felt like the arrival of the spirit tide was nothing but an opportunity for them to have their revenge. Feng Lin was among them. He was also affected by the atmosphere and felt hot blood coursing through his veins. However, he didn't lose his rationality, calmly considering the situation. Once the battle started, all interstellar humans had a responsibility to go out and kill. When that time came, Feng Lin didn't feel that he could sit out of the battle. Naturally, he wasn't willing to do so as well. A battlefield was where heroes were born, it was a place for heroes. The most wealth could only be gained amidst battle. By fighting the spirit race on the battlefield, one could seize trophies of war to replenish their coffers. Regardless of power, cultivation opportunities, or the spirit race civilization's product, all of these could be used as resources to increase one's strength. If one could survive until the end, they would achieve an unimaginable accomplishment. Every battle against alien races would lead to the shifting of power balance within humanity, akin to the cards of fate being shuffled. No one was willing to miss the chance. How would Feng Lin be willing to stay at the back? As the black spirit tide approached, the nearby stars began to dim like fires being extinguished. The originally dark outer space became even more desolate, devoid of light. It was like a giant black hole had devoured everything. It was extremely terrifying. If one stared at the scene for a long time, their hearts would involuntarily pound with fear. "This is?" Fong Lin asked in a bewildered tone. The lieutenant colonel spoke. "You should understand now, right? Between different races, there's no mercy. One cannot live while the other survives. The spirit race are energy life forms, and they have to absorb energy in the universe to survive. They are like a sweeper existence, and everywhere they sweep through, all energy would be cleanly devoured, dooming the place they swept through to eternal damnation. With no energy, there's no way other life forms would be able to survive. They are akin to the plague of the universe. Everywhere they passed by, nothing can survive. Even fixed stars would be destroyed by them. From the information we gained about the spirit race, we discovered that they have at least destroyed over 10 star systems, over 30,000 civilizations, with many of the civilizations more advanced than humanity. Humans walked out of the solar system and managed to unify the Milky Way galaxy after 1,000 years. But even before we could explore further out, we encountered attacks from the spirit race. Now, after 2,000 years have passed, we finally managed to stabilize the situation, but we still have no way to head out and explore new lands. After speaking until here, he clenched his fist tightly. The dignity of being a soldier caused him to feel extremely sullen. The intent of his words truly caused one to feel frightened. To him, Fong Lin was just a junior. These words wouldn't be able to stir his heart too much. There are civilizations more prosperous and advanced than ours, yet why are they already destroyed? How did we manage to defend against alien races for over 2,000 years? Although those alien races with more advanced civilizations had the technology, their life evolution level wasn't high enough and they had no way to fight against the spirit race. In the cruel interstellar battle, their lives weren't enough to pay the price of war and were all incomparably weak. Their level was much lower compared to the spirit race, and under the mental attacks from them, the weaker life forms would all collapse effortlessly as the entire races went extinct. As for humanity, we are lucky because mythological genes exist within us. These are valuable treasures left behind for us by our ancestors in primordial times, allowing our life level to be enhanced as we undergo a transformation, reaching a higher cultivation realm. Although our starting point is weak, as long as we cultivate step by step, we would be able to surpass the life level of the spirit race sooner or later. Our individual combat prowess isn't inferior to them at all, and our technology level is also equal to them. This is why both sides are in a stalemate even after such a long time, the lieutenant colonel spoke in an impassioned tone. So this was the case. Fong Lin also nodded as he fell into contemplation. Pay attention, the spirit race is attacking. Next, it should be the time we test the might of your crimson refinement gunpowder, right? I hope your gunpowder would be able to cause great damage to them. If this experiment is a success, humanity would gain another powerful weapon against those bastards. The lieutenant colonel was filled with anticipation. Fong Lin smiled and nodded. He then glanced over into the horizons. The black spirit tide surged forth like the ocean. When they got near, explosive blasts sounded out, reverberating through the air. Boom, boom, boom. The firing of the cannons continued unceasingly. Over 1,000,000 cannons started to fire, blasting the balls of crimson refinement gunpowder into the crowd of spirit life forms. A strange red light began to be emitted. The moment they came in contact with the spirit life forms, they began burning like straw, and the flames from the gunpowder spread with great intensity like the plague. The humans in the fortresses were all cheering as the red flames towered up into the sky, taking up one half of the surrounding space, with the other half being taken up by the spirit race in frenzied retreat. The crimson refinement gunpowder showed its effectiveness after a single blast. What a grand scene of destruction in the universe! Everything was truly burned cleanly, turning into ashes. Chapter 400, Farming Contribution Points. What a grand and magnificent sight! The blazing red flames illuminated the entire area and extended toward the horizons. The moment those spirit life forms got near, their bodies would instantly be ignited into flames. Their lives and energy body were like the best material for starting a fire, causing the flames to burn with even more intensity. The black spirit tide collided with the red stretch of light, causing the one half of the area to be filled with flames, while the other was filled with the spirit life forms. The black spirit tide seemed incomparably ferocious, but the red light used them as burning materials, blazing stronger and stronger, extending forth endlessly. Open fire! An imposing voice rang out. As the sound of the voice faded, the countless metallic cannons of the fortresses fired again. The energy cannons filled with the crimson refinement gunpowder blasted out once more. Interstellar warfare was incomparably cruel. There was only a single rule: no mercy. When an opponent was injured, one must give it their all to claim their lives. Cruelty, cold-blooded, brutal, there was no room for mercy. The spirit race devoured the energy of the universe. They were the enemies of the races living in the universe. If interstellar humans wanted to exist and continue living in the universe, they only had a single solution. They had to annihilate the spirit race. This was a grudge that could only be settled with the death of an entire race. There was no other way to resolve this. In that case, there was only a single path. Either you die, or I die. The Great Wall Army naturally wouldn't be polite. They fired the cannons with gusto. The energy cannons broke the bodies of the spirit life forms into smaller energy particles. Once these particles come in contact with the crimson refinement gunpowder, they would instantly combust and spread even further. The purple-red flames stretched out continuously. The black spirit tide was now blocked by a layer of powerful flames with no way to advance further. In the end, when the fire spread over, all the spirit monsters were in chaos as they fled in different directions. It's truly effective. The crimson refinement gunpowder is the bane of the spirit race. Humanity has gained yet another weapon that can damage and kill the spirit race. Sooner or later, we will counterattack and annihilate the spirit race, opening up a path for humanity to explore beyond the Milky Way galaxy. Gaining victory in the first battle, cheering rang out from within the fortresses as the hearts of everyone leaped with joy. With regard to the war against the spirit race, the confidence of everyone soared once again. The crimson refinement gunpowder had truly shown its might with just a single battle. Feng Lin, well done. Your invention of the crimson refinement gunpowder, as well as your mass production of it, will definitely earn you much contribution points, the lieutenant colonel praised. From today onwards, you might even become the idol of many students of the Great Wall University. Feng Lin smiled and nodded, but he didn't lose his head. Instead, he actually felt somewhat strange. The black spirit tide was terrifying, but they dispersed so quickly? He couldn't help but feel a sense of surrealism. Although the crimson refinement gunpowder countered the spirit race, he didn't feel that just a single medical substance could defeat such a terrifying species that had destroyed several star systems before. It ended so quickly? Is this still the terrifying spirit race that I know of? Feng Lin involuntarily asked. Of course not. This black spirit tide is merely the vanguard, they are the cannon fodders of the spirit race. This is just the beginning. According to the information our university collected, the true elite forces of the spirit race would arrive here roughly about 10 days later. Oh. Feng Lin's expression turned heavy. Don't worry, for these 2,000 plus years, we have defended the Milky Way galaxy from the spirit race. We naturally have a mature system on how to handle them. At that time, you will see it. Naturally, you still have to continue producing the crimson refinement gunpowder. Earlier, we used about 800 kilograms worth of crimson refinement gunpowder and we completely slaughtered the spirit tide's vanguard. It's truly a weapon of mass destruction, and it's naturally for the better if we can have more of it. Just this crimson refinement gunpowder alone can allow you to farm vast amounts of contribution points, said the lieutenant colonel calmly. Feng Lin nodded, but he didn't feel so confident in his heart. The spirit race was also an extremely terrifying race in the universe who evolved very quickly. Their existences were like a natural calamity to the star systems. Before this, in front of the spirit black hole, the crimson refinement gunpowder was completely useless. Only the true crimson refinement cinnabar pill could do real damage, and they needed a large quantity before they could succeed in killing it. The strength of a life form depended on its evolution. This time around, the spirit race suffered such a huge disadvantage. Given their evolution speed, the next time they came, they would surely be prepared for this. He who gave no thought to far-flung problems would soon find suffering nearby. Thus, Feng Lin had to make his preparations for that as well. At this moment, the Great Wall University already sent out teams to clean up the battlefield. Feng Lin didn't stay here for too long. After the threat was vanquished, he turned and departed. But the commotion caused by the might of the crimson refinement gunpowder also caused Feng Lin to rise to fame after this battle. The aftermath's influence continued to spread. So this is the might of the crimson refinement gunpowder. In a real battle, it's truly as terrifying as rumored. Simply the bane of the spirit race. It's a brand new style of refinement technique. I heard that the creator is a freshman who recently joined the university. How impressive. He has achieved such a huge contribution. Most probably, he would soon be able to be ranked on the star level of the heaven-chosen rankings. An uproar was caused in the discussion forum of the university. There were voices of envy, jealousy, awe, all sorts of emotions. On the battlefield, only through shedding their sweat and blood could the students gain contribution points. Now, someone of the same generation actually managed to rise so strongly. How could the others not feel a stirring in their hearts? And the scene of the spirit race fleeing in terror was broadcasted through the entire star web, creating an even bigger commotion. Even though Feng Lin didn't go online often, when he did so to browse important information, there would constantly be news about him being spread online. The Mythology forum was also in a frenzy. A shocking discovery, a medicinal substance of the killing style. A freshman of the Great Wall University has created an entirely new style of medicinal refinement. New era of human warfare, killing style medicinal refinement technique. A person from the solar system created a miraculous medical substance, and he has ascended to the heaven-chosen ranking. Each post had many emoticons beneath, and there were countless comments, drawing intense discussions. A new universe war would soon begin, and the attentions of humanity were all focused on the Great Wall University. The first time the crimson refinement gunpowder appeared already showed that it contained incredible killing power against the spirit race. The miraculous tiny crystals caused many to sigh in awe and shock. Also, Feng Lin discovered that he had somehow ascended to the star level of the heaven-chosen rankings, and his position surged like a rocket, surpassing many other names, finally stopping at the 26th position. The information there stated, Feng Lin, Origins, Solar System, a freshman of Mythology Academy of the Great Wall University. Cultivation level, Grand Cultivator Realm. Vitality stat, above 4,000. Achievement, inventor of the crimson refinement gunpowder, a medical substance that is extremely effective in slaying the spirit race. Through the invention of the crimson refinement gunpowder, Feng Lin entered the rankings. In truth, he was the only one from the solar system who entered it. However, he didn't depend on his combat strength to enter the rankings. Those people ranked behind him all had at least 9,000 points in vitality stats. They were the truly powerful characters of the younger generation at the Grand Cultivator realm. Now that he suddenly rose to the 26th position, it seemed somewhat abrupt. There might be people who felt that he wouldn't live up to his reputation. But Feng Lin didn't care about this at all. Humans were an intelligent race. They would naturally make good use of the tools available to them. Just the invention of the crimson refinement gunpowder alone was an achievement that surpassed countless grand cultivators. If it wasn't for the fact that his cultivation base was currently lagging behind these people, it wouldn't be a difficult thing for him to even ascend to the moon level. Since the beginning of time, in chaos, heroes would always rise with the wind. This scene verified his earlier judgment. Every time a great war was about to occur, it would be a chance for people to rise. In that case, why couldn't he be the one who rose? He didn't rest and immediately began a new round of research. The powerful physique of a grand cultivator allowed him to operate for a long time at a high-level intensity. 10 days later, there would be an even stronger spirit race army arriving. He had to do research and see how he could create an even more effective substance to hunt these spirit life forms, which would allow him to farm even more contribution points. In interstellar warfare, both sides wouldn't rest until one side was exterminated. The war had just started, but it seemed about to move into its climax soon. This time around, he was planning to establish a matchless and magnificent amount of contribution points.